Okay, we're getting a thumbs up here, so I guess we'll begin the meeting. It's the last sort of second meeting before Christmas. So welcome to the Public Works and Protective Services Committee meeting. And acknowledge that we live on the traditional territories of the Sianu and the Sauk First Nations. So with the agenda, we have some pinks to add. And with that, ask for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. In favor? Okay, so tonight we just have two main items on our agenda. One of the items is the draft management plan for the old school, referred to, for lack of a formal name, the Community and Arts Centre. The committee, it's a draft plan, so tonight the committee will have the opportunity to discuss the plan and suggest revisions, or just talk it over. It's thanks very much to Ms. Jennifer Miller, who put in a huge amount of research and work drafting this plan. It's something that's been a long time in coming, a solid step in the development of the school as a vibrant, thriving facility in the community. The other agenda item is the terms of reference for the Healthy Community Advisory Select Committee. I just wanted to note that because there seems to be a misconception that the Healthy Communities Committee will not be managing the school. And there's nowhere in the terms of reference that says it will be managing the school. Just as the other committees, PTASC, MEASC, and agricultural advisory committees, the role is not to manage, but to provide advice and recommendations. From there, it's up to council to use or not use the advice or recommendations when setting policies. And it's up to staff to do the managing. So an example of how this would work is with the signage. Now, we all know that for quite a long time now, there's been a big need for signage at the school, with people wandering around trying to find out which in the heck door to use and going into Cirque looking for pickleball. So anyway, what the Healthy Communities Committee would do is to liaise with the community groups and the school users to look into, what would be the best options for the signs, what kind of signs were needed, where they'd be located. So the committee would compile that input, possibly look into some costs, and make a recommendation to the Public Works Committee, or whatever the title of that committee is going to be once we move to Committee of the Whole format. And anyway, then the Public Works Committee would discuss, tweak, or deny the recommendation, or approve it, or send it back to the Healthy Communities Committee for more information. If the recommendation is approved, it next goes to a council meeting where it would receive final approval, or not, before it can move forward. So that's kind of how it works, and that's how it would work with any of the recommendations or advice that would come through from the Healthy Communities Committee. It's a process, and that's what we really try to follow as much as we can. So council accepts advice and recommendations from the other committees that we have, and the procedure would be the same for the Healthy Communities Committee. So with that, we'll move on to public participation. So if we have someone in who would like to speak.
Barb Seletsky, Kavir Road.
So having said that, maybe Mr. Pyatt respectfully, with respect, could clarify, saying 3 times at a meeting, the management plan would be turned over to healthy communities. I mean, 3 times you said that. And you can listen to it.
Point of order, Ms. Councilor App. Ms. Sawatsky should be addressing you directly.
Okay,
not,
sorry.
Yeah.
I looked at the wrong person. It would be nice to have that clarified though, and I'm wondering if the school needs to have a committee looking after it. Why didn't you just start up a new committee? Anytime you need a committee, you start one up and then you study it for a while, and I still don't know how healthy communities, which was to support optimal health, well-being, and human development, segues into managing municipal buildings or looking after problems in municipal buildings. I mean, how does that work? I guess you don't know.
Well, this is a question period, so it's just, you're welcome
Okay,
to
but
say your piece.
really, it's beginning to sound like you should sell the building because it's sure losing a lot of money every year. And as my final sentence in the letter says, the CFO, whose profession and expertise is finance, should be the one looking after it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Jim McPherson, Eagle Tree Place. First, from my own comment, essentially I'm referring to, I suppose, what I interpret the draft saying is that the healthy communities will start adopting what essentially amounts to a kind of a policy role, which is the responsibility of council and not of the committee itself. Beyond that, I wanted to take the opportunity to read some of the comments that my wife has had with regard to the old school. And her comments basically begin with the purchase of the school in 2017 for $1.5 million, borrowed from the policing reserve fund. These monies were eventually reimbursed to the police fund by borrowing from the general municipal reserve fund, which taxpayers are now reimbursing at a rate of $42,500 a year. At the end of 2023, taxpayers still owe $1,252,000 to the reserve fund, which will take us 29.5 years to eradicate this debt. That amounts to about 1.5% of the tax bill. Since purchase, the facility has seen several $1 million spent on its existence with no end in sight. Besides the purchase price, the district has received the COVID-19 Resilience Federal Provincial Infrastructure Grant for $944,000 to upgrade facilities. Those monies have now been spent, and MAPA in its 5-year lease was exempted from paying rent because it was paying for upgrades in part of the building. It's my understanding that the former tenant Instinct also spent several $1,000s on upgrades. Then we had thousands of dollars that had to be spent every year to cover the deficit. This year, for example, the budget shows expenditures of $262,000 and a projected revenue of $87,000. That's coming up with a very large deficit indeed. Certainly with regard to the tenants, there had been at one particular point a policy based on square foot cost as a basis for rental. That seems to have gone by the board. But one of the things certainly which stands out to us is that with MAPA's upgrades now completed, it should start to be paying rent like all the other tenants, commensurate with its ability to pay. It's my understanding that, we now have the issue of the construction of a new entrance. to the partially hidden courtyard next to the pub? And what is the expected cost of this addition? And is it still underway in view of the pending rental next year of the room next to the preschool? Also, as Jeffrey Creek noted in his last budget presentation, repairs also have to be done to the roof for the old school. It just seems to us that there is never any end in sight to the monies that have to be spent on the school. Question has to be raised at some point. At what point does council say enough is enough and decide either to swallow the problem of insurmountable debt and pay for it through public taxpayers, or by selling the building? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Carol Voigt, Gemini Drive. Councillor Rock, thank you for your clarification on the role of the healthy communities. I do understand that the role was that they would make recommendations to council, that they wouldn't be running the building. I would like to say that as a person with 50 years experience as a landlord and a tenant, I have 30 years as a landlord of rental properties, 20 years as a renter of community halls and gymnasia. I think it foolhardy to ask a group of volunteers with unknown experience in the rental management business to make any recommendations to council about managing a building. I think it's destined to fail. Having said that, I think it's really important to point out that the district's acquisition of the facility in 2017 was a large undertaking for a modest-sized community. In 7 years, a comprehensive and transparent asset management plan has yet to be put in place. Property taxes have risen appreciably, and the district's financial reserves have become less robust. With the changing fiscal environment, I'm concerned that unless we develop a facility management plan that shows a clear and expedited path to optimize facility operations and minimize net annual district input costs, the tax, ratepayers who once supported the facility's purchase may begin agitating for its disposition, and I think you're starting to hear that already. Rather than engage the committee as noted in the staff report and cited above, I strongly recommend and respectfully request that our CFO take on this important task. For the near term, I suggest there may be merit in adopting a building facility and rental system similar to that used by Metchosin Community Association. MCA has an online calendar that the public can view. This is important. If the facility is available on the desired date, then the renter books the space, signs a contract, and pays for the booking. It's easy, and it has run well for decades. If a similar system were adopted for rental of a school gymnasium, the addition of an online booking system would greatly improve efficiency for everyone. This could be implemented as an early stage in the requested assignment of our CFO to the important task of getting the school facility on a clear path to long-term sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public participation?
Good evening, Avril Yoakum, Winfall Road. Metchosin District has had a long-standing process for creating advisory committees. To become a member of any committee, there is a requirement to submit an application to provide one's expertise, experience, and the ability to provide hands-on skills. The Healthy Communities 2010, the purpose was to support community activities that improve all aspects of living in Metchosin and reflect the health and well-being of the community. And now in 2024, the proposal that the committee's mandate be expanded to include providing advice and making recommendations to staff and council on the use and function of the Metchosin School Community Multi-Use Facility, including capital improvements, suggestions, alternate revenue sources, and programming. What the district is suggesting is not reasonable or fair to the current members of Healthy Communities, who very likely don't have the necessary tools to fulfill this new proposal. It certainly isn't acceptable to the taxpayers of Metchosin that we're expected to continue to carry on with the white elephant because the district wants to save money and not burden staff with the work of managing it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry Rourke, Rocky Point Road, and I'm also the chair of the Healthy Communities Advisory Select Committee. I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding in public perception on our management involvement with commercial leases versus our involvement with helping council find future usage, best usage, future revenue sources. The capital improvement part of it is our role, in my understanding and discussion with staff and council, is to help procure funding, go after accessibility grants, go after capital improvement grants. We've got members with a wide variety of experience with everything from development, construction, government policy analysis. You know, I don't have an exhaustive list in front of me, but I feel that we have a good group of people. I also know that we have positions that will be opening in the near future, and it would be lovely if people from the community that had, say, commercial lease experience applied, you know, to help sit on this committee and offer advice when council seeks it. I just think, you know, the role that we've been spoken to about and the perception of public just is very different. So I just, you know, I wasn't prepared to speak tonight, but I just hope that helps clear a little bit of it up from, you know, the discussions we've had to date.
Thank you.
Chris Vanderwater for 569 William Head Road. I'm here as the president of the Metchosin Arts and Cultural Center, and we read the report and put together a quick little letter here that I'll quickly read. And congratulations on a good start for a management plan for the elementary school site, 4495 Happy Valley Road. As of tonight's council meeting, I would like to offer a few important details that will need to be further finished out as this process continues. On page 3, under executive summary, references are made to the district receiving an infrastructure grant in 2021. But the list is incomplete and inaccurate. The $1 million grant was used on the training side of the site for these upgrades. The Art Center section is still waiting for some of the items that were mentioned in the list, such as exterior doors, specifically the handicap entry door. As well, many of the improvements previous to this grant were done by instinct training in lieu of rent for several years. The question is, how is that exchange of money being documented? On page 7, under current uses, occupants, leases, etc., the list is misleading. It should document major categories such as the Seniors Resource Center, Mile Zero Brewery, Metchosin Preschool, Elections BC, Metchosin Fire Department Training, Pickleball, Drop-In Sports, Old School Museum Storage, District of Metchosin File Storage, Metchosin Arts and Cultural Center, which the district looks after, and then under the MAC of the list should include 1 sculpture studio, 2 music studios, 1 painter studio, 1 arts collective and gallery, 1 journalism / videography / production studio, videography, 1 events room for public use, and 1 small office space. Please note that this addition to the draft is an initial offering. No mention has been made to the as-is information that was passed along by Chris Vanderwater to CAO and Councillor Shukin in January 2023. Let's work together to make this a complete document. And further, I'll just add this. I don't think having the Hicks look after, or not the Hicks one, but health communities, I don't think that's a great idea. There's too many people involved. And things could get confusing in a hurry. I think that MACA has a good solution. We've had to hire a part-time employee because the Arts and Cultural Center is getting busier and busier. And I think that we could possibly share duties with this employee on a contractual basis, and it would be done right from the school site. I think it would save everybody money. I know you're trying to save money on further employees, and this is a good way around it. So come and talk to us, Bob.
Thank you.
Good evening, Brent Donaldson, Charles Court. I hadn't planned on speaking this evening, but as a member of many advisory committees over the years, I'll name a few: Fire Advisory Committee, Agricultural Committee, Parks Committee, Fire Hall Steering Committee. Essentially those committees, when I applied, I had some background in all of those different committees. I actually basically put in a resume. Fire Advisory Committee, I was a firefighter for 35 years. Agricultural Committee, I was a farmer. Parks Committee, I worked for BC Parks for a number of years. And Fire Hall Steering Committee, same as the Fire Advisory Committee, spent many years in the fire service. Certainly I agree with Ms. Boyd's comments and also Mr. Vanderwater's. Management or any sort of calendar that could be managed, I think MACA would be a good choice. They're in the building. Certainly duplication of services, I think we want to avoid that, but certainly if we have someone over there that can work an hour or so a day extra, that'd be awesome. Having the health communities manage a commercial building, I think it's putting a lot of tasks, a lot of responsibility. If there is an interest to have some sort of a committee, I would agree with Mr. Vanderwater. It should be a couple people, they put their resume in, they have maybe commercial rental experience, maybe building experience, and then they can report to our CFO. You know, I applaud anybody that volunteers in this community, firefighters, advisory committee members, but I think this one is stepping outside of the scope of what the original intent of the advisory committee was. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishes to speak? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the adoption of the Public Works and Protective Service Committee meeting of November 16th. Moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Shukin. All in favor? All right, so the report. So we ask our CAO, Mr. Payette, to come and speak with us about the draft terms of reference for the Healthy Communities Advisory Select Committee.
Okay, thank you through the chair. So some excellent comments tonight. Some of the comments, Mr. Vanderwater's list of things we can add to the draft. That's the whole point of bringing the draft forward, is to get more information. So appreciate all that. January 2023, I don't even know if I knew where my desk was at that date. But thank you very much. Regarding comments about the management plan, so I'll just say very clearly that Council's strategic plan was to provide a facility management plan this year, and here we are in December trying to get a management plan across, and so the avenue of approach is through the community committee called Healthy Communities Committee, because their mandate is community activities. So it's being brought forward through this committee for council's expectations to get it done this year. I don't believe we'll get it done this year, but we definitely have a good draft in place that I think everybody has commented on, and we'll still have time to comment. And we'll keep piecing it together to meet that expectation of council. In the report, everyone had a chance to read it. Basically, we're proposing that the Healthy Communities Committee that's been established in 2010 would be the most likely committee to support advising council on this multi-use facility and continuing to build those relationships with the other entities like NACA. And to reach that end goal, we have revised their terms of reference, and particularly in the scope of the terms of reference, we've added language regarding the giving advice to council on promoting the multi-use facility where possible, making recommendations and providing advice. So all hearken to policy side of our governance, leaving all the management responsibilities to moi. So that's a quick and dirty summary of the recommendation tonight.
Okay, questions, maybe? I know they're out there. Who wants to go first? Councillor Shukin.
Yeah, I don't have so many questions, but I do have some thoughts, general comments. Did you want to hear them now, or do you just open the floor to questions? That might be the right.
Sure, we'll just think whatever you'd like to do.
Okay. Well, first of all, I think the terms of reference for the new for Healthy Communities, the new terms of reference are very well put together. I think I'm supportive of the scope. However, as it relates to the school, my sense is that right now is not the time to revise terms of reference and to turn over large questions, even in an advisory capacity, to Healthy Communities. My sense is that we are still at a place where there's some fundamental questions that need to be answered and done at the governance level, and that's us. For example, having a clear booking system at the hall to facilitate community use, understanding human resource needs to maintain that system and other matters. Again, use procedures for the gym. Another one that I think we have to move toward is an understanding of what our expectations around revenue could be over the years. And I've heard, inklings of whether we should sell the gym or not, but I think we're not the gym, the school. I think we're a long way away from that right now, but I think we do need an understanding of what it is we can possibly hope for in terms of revenue and set community expectations. Now, I'm going to put forward an alternative thought to moving ahead with the revision to the Healthy Communities terms of reference. And I'm not putting forward a motion, it's just something to discuss maybe as we go forward. I would propose that council develop a small subcommittee that would be able to look at some of these basic questions and report back to this committee or council as a whole. And if you have that subcommittee, you have a much more nimble body, because you can meet whenever you want to. You can bring in staff as well. You can be able to access other people. And I would propose that as a body that we can maybe use to address some of these lingering issues, bring them back to this table, and then council as well. Again, I think that there's some other heads and some deeper thinking. So there's some deeper thinking that needs to be done on this issue, and we need a mode of doing that. And I might propose a subcommittee. My proposal for this would be, I'm racing ahead, I know, but I would propose that it be myself and Councillor Epp And the other elements of the subcommittee would be CAO Payette and Mr. Creek as well. I put that forward just for discussion points, and we can come back to it later. But
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or how about Councillor Graham?
Well, I had some questions actually. The way I read the document, and I appreciate what people said at the podium, but if I read it properly, what it says is it excludes advice from Healthy Communities Advisory Committee on MACA and on commercial leases. So that only leaves the gym and the grounds. So we're only talking about the advisory committee looking at those two questions. And when I think about it, the gym, don't we have the fees set?
Yes.
Are there any tweaks there? I mean, we haven't heard there's any problems. If there are, they could come back here without necessarily going to an advisory committee. On the grounds, we've got the community garden underway. We've got the Village Square Society proposal under discussion with the CFO. We've got to clean up the fire department gear, sort of in the wings that are in the air anyway. Have I got that wrong?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, with all due respect, Councillor Shukin, I think that's, referring to things that really this committee is not going to do. It's, and maybe it's just the wording, I don't know, but it's just, to me, it's just strictly advisory. Things come up, they'll be discussed. We have they're going to be input from users and community members that'll be invited to the Healthy Communities meetings, and that's the whole idea. Was that the committee can be kind of a liaison, because otherwise, we get a few people that speak at these meetings, but otherwise we really don't hear too much from the community. So this way, with the school, we will be getting input from a broader base of community members. And I mean, we're not going to be making decisions. Okay, we think we should be charging $100 a day for use of the parking lot. I mean, those are not the kind of things that, as the way I see it, that the committee is going to do. It's going to be more, as was mentioned, it's going to be more like, well, accessibility is a big thing. The committee can look and keep an eye out for grants that are available, and then potentially cost them out, and then bring them to council to for approval to apply for those grants, and then actually do the work to apply for them. Those are the kind of things that, when we have spoken about at the Healthy Communities meetings, thinking about this, that this might be coming forth in the terms of reference, that those were things that everybody was excited about. And it was about liaising with the community groups to think about new activities that might go on there, as far as fundraising. It would be fundraising ideas that might come up. It's not like looking at commercial rentals. It's not management. It's community based to improve ideas for activities, a think tank kind of thing for ideas and things that might just make the whole facility more vibrant and used by more people, and get people's interests and what they like to see in there. There's a survey going around from the West Shore Parks and Recreation now about classes that it might be going in. Well, that's something that we might hear from at the committee level as what other people might like, and then we can bring that forward. But it's the committee won't be making decisions. It'll just be bringing up ideas and coming to the next committee level with some ideas. And if they get a shot down, well, then that's the way it'll be. Councillor Shukin.
Sorry, I hate to jump in before others have had a comment, but I see that, and I think the terms of reference are worded in such a way that it's clear it's an advisory body, and those questions can be brought to them. And thank you for clarifying that at the beginning. My only concern is that I think as I see it with the school, it is in a process of evolution. So we bought the school in 2017. So that's not this council or the last council. It is the council before. We signed the agreement with MACA, the district did in 2021. So that's the previous council. We now completed the renovations of the gym, which again, from a grant from the previous council. So we are taking steps but they're gradual. My only sense is that there is another step that we have to take on, again, fundamental issues. Yes, we've set the fees for sure, but do we really know that those are going to be viable in terms of recouping some of the expenses from the gym? Do we have a human resources management plan down in terms of managing the scheduling of the gym and the school? So things like that. I think, to me, I really like the idea of turning some of the questions over for advice to an advisory committee, but my sense is there are some steps that we have to take prior to us doing that. So I just clarifying the perspective.
Thanks. But I do think the line between staff and the advisory committee is the same as all the other ones. I mean, I think it's it's an advisory committee. It's not staff. Staff is the one that's going to be dealing mostly with the fees. If we hear something from somebody, then we'll talk to staff. But it's staff that's going to be bringing those types of decisions to council. Anyway, Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. As a person who actually sat on Healthy Communities Committee in 2017 for 4 years, 2 terms, it was a very good experience for me, and there was, I would say, probably the same enthusiasm and passion that we see today, and that we see in all our advisory committees. Advisory committees actually report to council, specifically, not to staff directly always, but these terms of reference might say something a little bit different. And I agree, there has been an evolution of how the school site has evolved since 2017. Steps and stages, a few steps forward, a few steps back. Some things are costing, a lot of money had to be invested, so it's cost more than the 1.5 that we purchased, significantly more. But we're at a place now where a lot of work has been done by a lot of different people, and I am very appreciative for that. It's now ready to be rented in many different ways. We've got a fee structure in place. I know I helped out a little bit of that myself by just scoping out what other community centers do. We have a lot of passionate people in this community, and models right under our nose here, whether it's community calendars or how the different community groups, like the community hall, how they rent out, how they take care of things, worth looking into and talking to them. Having been a tenant there with different groups, it's phenomenal how it works. So that's something to look at until we get to the bigger picture where we are more we don't have a business plan. We do need one. And so those things can be incorporated. We have a plan in front of us tonight just after this terms of reference that is a skeleton. It's a place to start, and I think it's a good place to start. It does need a lot of input and tweaking, obviously. What I see in this terms of reference is a duplication of services or of projects, perhaps. As an example, we have council has already engaged, well, staff, but as a person who's a board member representing this district at West Shore Parks and Recreation, they're involved, being interested in the school, so that's good. We've got our fee structure in place. We barely started out the gate with that. We have accessibility. I've been appointed to do that. Mayor Little actually just mentioned that two meetings ago about that. We have an accessibility plan. We have Capital West, which is our accessibility committee, and a member from our community will be appointed to that. Mr. Creek is phenomenal at grant writing and reporting and all of this. So if there are any grants to be had, it's just a matter of moving them on to him if he hasn't seen them already. So far, anything I've moved on to him, he's seen, so it's good that we're kind of on the same page. So I would not want to be duplicating services and creating more work for anybody, staff, volunteers. There is a governance model to follow. We appointed people to an advisory committee. We're in the process of updating all the terms of references of all of our advisory committees. this is a start. I'm not sure if this is the one that would be most suitable. And incorporating the school, I'm not sure that I'm supportive of that, given some of the items that have been mentioned there that we already are doing. So if we're going to allow the advisory committee to do that, then it's taking away from work that's already been assigned to other people or work that's in the process. So a lot of things to definitely think about, and I like the idea of a possible subcommittee. It had been mentioned at the beginning of our term, actually, to have a task force. And we explored that about a year ago, casually, with excuse me, a public sort of an open house workshop where we had Mr. and Mrs. Hildebrand come in as some consultants. That was just a one-off. We haven't followed through on anything more than that. There may be an opportunity for us to do that. I do know the community wants to have some input on this, so some public engagement certainly from the school would be helpful. There are some other points a little bit later I'd like to comment on, but that's what I have for now. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone? Marilyn?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you to staff for the report. The school, as Councillor Shukin mentioned, was bought in 2017. There's never been a management plan, so 7 years later, I think this is a very good start. As you all remember, that we talked about this in the very beginning of our term. It was one of our strategic priorities to get a handle on the management of the school, so I think this is a good start. The committee, as has been noted, is for recommendations and advice. I was also hoping, even though it's not within the purview of the committee to look at the leases of MACA and Mile Zero and the other renters, I was hoping that it would be in their scope of practice to reach out to MACA and CERC to get regarding the use and the function of the whole school site. Doesn't mean they have to interfere with the leases. So they would be sort of like a conduit of information to this committee. I don't think it's duplicating of services. With Councillor Shukin's suggestion, I could offer a compromise. Perhaps a lot of the information from tonight's meeting could go back to Councillor Shukin and Epp and staff. They could go through some of this because this was meant as very draft, both of these documents, very draft, for us to comment on, improve upon, and then to put it into place. So I like the idea that at least we're moving forward. I think we're moving forward towards a paid position. But it's a different crowd than we have at the finance meetings, where we've got a very tight fiscal budget this year, and we will next year. And any notion about adding staff members is not met very with a lot of enthusiasm. So this is a creative way to move forward on some type of a management plan, but I do agree that in the future we will be moving towards a paid position, manager on site or something to that effect. Thank you.
Thanks. So there is a recommendation here. Someone want to, Councillor Gray.
I just had some questions for the CAO, just to get clarity again. So I think we've got it clear. We're talking about the gym right now and the grounds, but I was looking through, I just wanted to walk through a couple of questions, if I might, through the chair.
I think Mr. Pay, there's a couple of questions for you.
Okay. Thank you. So through the chair, Mr. Pay, I'm looking at the terms of reference, and there's a few things that are highlighted, and I'm really following on what the mayor's just spoken about our financial situation. So one of the things is, I guess I'm trying to figure out what's the problem we're trying to fix by getting the committee involved as compared to the work of staff and what comes to council otherwise. And one of the things is, like, I'm just curious, do we need advice on capital improvements? We've invested an awful lot of money. Mr. McPherson ran through a litany of various things, and we heard also from Mr. Vanderwater about all that's going on. It seems to me the school's in tip-top shape at the moment. The one question we've got is a septic tank, and I think it was raised the other day, the septic system possibly, and we'll look forward to an engineer's report on that. But do we really want to spend any more money? Do we want people looking at capital projects at the moment? I would say no. Our financial situation is one where it's not so important to me. It's a great facility. It's been really fixed up well. A lot of work went in there by Mac and the other commercial renters. So, any thought of what kind of capital projects we'd be looking for?
Well, in the future, we'd be looking at ideas for the outdoor space, community ideas, I would think. Facility booking software would probably be 10 grand and up. New staff will be $80,000. So all of these are expenses in a capital nature. So those would be examples of
those kinds of things. Thanks.
Items to discuss. Yeah.
Well, through the chair, the other one was alternative revenue sources, grants, and events. And I guess I'm thinking this is kind of a community-wide question. You know, is there other ways to raise revenue? And if we did have some public participation, would that be a way to do that? Was there a particular thought, a particular place we might go or look for grants that wouldn't already be evident to us?
There might be. So word on the street is grants are available in areas we haven't researched. Another example of fundraising could be capital campaigns or events, new events the community would be interested in having in the facility. Mm-hmm. So all of this information could come through community engagement.
And so grants for what purpose?
For grants for facility upgrades, grants for accessibility upgrades, public engagement grants, asset management grants. There's endless opportunities for grants if you're out there looking.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess I'm feeling like the facility's in pretty good shape right now. Maybe we're not needing grants so much. There's a few things to do, but we've got them in our budget at the moment.
Well, we have $100,000 cost coming for a septic system. Mm-hmm. We have the building is old, so mm-hmm. we could do a lot of energy upgrades. There's energy grant opportunities potentially out there.
Well, we replaced the furnaces, I think, with natural gas during our term, 2 furnaces. So they're there. We did the heat exchanger on top already. Mm-hmm. And okay, I just wondered if there was more meat there.
Windows, insulation, siding, fascia.
Mm-hmm. I guess where I'm going with this is that we've heard already we've put a heck of a lot of money into this, and I just don't know that it's our next move in terms of money spending. The next one is programming. Advising us about programming, but I'm thinking it's MACA, it's CERC, it's Pickleball, the other tenants and users who do the programming, not the district. So would they be advising who exactly? We don't do programming.
We are entering into programming with relationship with West Shore, and so we're piloting projects such as first aid training, babysitter certification trainings, fitness classes, health improvement type classes. A lot of that is programming, and so programming.
It's a music program.
I just want to kind of talk about the whole area of programming versus leasing versus use of the facility, and catch
is good.
One of my thoughts about the mandate of the facility, to me it's a community facility, and the ratio of use and the usership of the facility is a community-driven mandate, and the more information we get from the community on the activities in the facility, the better. So I'm not running it as a private network, fitness center or private anything. This is a community facility for the community, and they should have a say in what's going on in the building.
Very good, and that's helpful to think of it that way. From my perspective, we have the facility, and then we've got community groups who do the work. And for example, the pickleball came along, and it's taken off, and it's really going great. But it's not really a district's initiative; it's the community's initiative, and that's how I'm seeing it. So I find it a bit odd, or not odd so much as I'm not sure about the fit. The other question then was with regards to the user groups of the gym. I suppose that's referring to West Shore Parks and Rec, a user group. It's on the second page, a suggestion that maybe we get advice on that.
Yeah, well, there be one user group. There's a number of user groups already in the facility, as was listed by one of our residents here. So there's lots of different user groups, individual users, lots.
Right. I guess most of those are under the MACA umbrella at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I guess we already mentioned the fees is the other thing that might be involved in setting fees, but the fees are already set. And I guess we're waiting to hear back.
Let's be clear about fees and charges. Staff bring forward recommendations on fees and charges, and council approves fees and charges.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a policy decision.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so it says here in the notes that the one idea would be, an example would be the committee would recommend fees and charges for groups using it, and that's what I was asking about. I think we've got the gym fees set.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a good conversation. This is why we're here. So fees in a recreation setting are never satisfactory to the user. They're always usually too high, or they don't fit right, and it's an ongoing discussion. It's not a perfect science, and so the relationship between users and staff, and then ultimately council who approves fees, has to be, a relationship that's built on honesty and trust and ethics and all that good stuff. And that all takes time and energy. And having committee input on the fees, to me, harkens to a community event, community center. And to bridge that gap between the community and council could be more than just staff. It could be community, committees, and user groups all working harmoniously together. That was nice. Man, that wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, it seems like the way the terms are set up, and I appreciate the chair's point is that, we can, and Mayor Little, that these probably we'd like to revise further to address that kind of question, because at the moment they wouldn't be having those discussions. It doesn't seem to me the way things are drafted.
And keep in mind that the building's taken off this year. If we had a little diagram, we would show the line going exponentially up. And so we think we've hit the mark pretty well on fees and leases, but we may not have. And so we continuously are going to review it and get that community input on what's acceptable as far as fees and charges. Because we could overestimate the fee cost and reduce the number of users quickly. And if we're reducing our own community users based on too high of fees, I think that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, that's great. Those are my questions right now. Thank you.
Okay, I think it was Councillor Schuck and then Councillor Donaldson.
So thank you, Councillor. Just a few questions for Mr. Payette, one in particular, and to test an understanding here. So at first glance, I don't have too many concerns with the mention of capital improvement suggestions, but I see those as distinct from maintenance suggestions. So, like even in some ways, the septic system, it's a capital investment, but it's maintenance, I would say, because you're maintaining what you have there.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe not. But in terms of the word capital improvement, strikes me as actually appropriate for the terms of reference here. But a capital improvement might be something like, in the future, we decide maybe solar panels are appropriate for the school. Or, for example, if and when the cars and the bus are removed from the cage, something might be done there as again, to facilitate the use.
More parking places.
Parking, yeah. So that might be a capital improvement to the site. And that's...
Yeah, different kind of courts outside.
Okay.
Things of that nature, yeah.
Great. Okay, and I just wanted to mention that. Again, I don't have any concerns about the terms here. It's just the timing of when these are brought in and Healthy Communities is enabled. So that's my only question. But yeah, so thank you for the clarification. Yeah.
Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. So through the chair to the CEO, you mentioned about the fees. So the fees that we had deliberated on and had voted on, are we not using those?
We are.
Okay.
We're working on a pilot project, and so through the pilot project, I'm not charging the fee structure as it is to get an understanding of the intake of the programs, and so that'll be a 3-month pilot project, and then if it takes off, we do the actual fee regime.
The one that we voted on?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you or any of your staff visited the website where Lance Stewart did the concept drawings during the time that Health Communities hired RC Strategies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen those, yeah.
So those drawings, albeit they're conceptual and they're not exactly what would maybe appeal to all of the Josenites, but they are definitely that $30,000 grant, not to be shelved, I hope, is a very good template for us all to have a good look at for what we need to do, for the things you just said, for outside the building, that sort of thing. Not so much on the inside of the building. I think it did discuss things that could take place. Some of that we've gone away from, and some of it we've embraced. So not to let that one slide too far away. Yeah, and we've already replaced windows. We've got heat pumps, so certainly those energy things are in place. Again, like I had said just previously, a lot of good work has gone into the building, and we are open for business now. It's a matter of how to get the word out there. With West Shore survey, that's just one component of, say, recreation. They will eventually send that to us, and we put it onto our website, send that up to our own people, and get some feedback from Chosen. One part of our public engagement. So we're just waiting for the staff down there to send that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Pat while he's up there?
Going.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a recommendation here. I don't know if anyone wants to move recommendation or something like it.
Sure, I'm happy to move the recommendation. I'll just split it though. I'd like us to discuss the first part. So I move that the committee review the draft terms of reference for the Healthy Community Advisory Committee and provide feedback to staff.
Do we have a second? Okay, moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any discussion? Any more discussion? Councillor Gray.
Sure. Well, I guess I think this is the group, Healthy Communities Group, is a terrific group, and they've been putting energy in and meeting through the couple of years that we've been at council, and I very much appreciate that. But I'm not convinced that the changes I see here make use of the valuable volunteer time. So I took a look back to see what is Healthy Communities, during the couple of years, what recommendations have we received from them. And I saw two. One was about poverty reduction planning. Could they be involved to help the fire chief? And another was about a public education training session for naloxone administration. And then there was something about dark skies, which I think has not come back yet. So I don't know that we've actually been receiving a lot of advice from Healthy Communities at the moment, or recommendations. And is that accurate?
I think as being on the committee for last term and this term, I think part of the problem is that the last terms of reference were 2010, and they're quite outdated. To me, the current ones are much more focused and will really help the community to actually get some work done more than it has. There certainly has done some positive things over the last couple of terms that I've been involved, but I think I think these ones are quite exciting to move on with new ideas and some new people, and just bring new energy to this committee.
Thanks, and I see that point too. We've got a good group of people here who can help us out. When I look through some of the material, it seemed to me, and I'm noting here in the terms of reference that the staffer mentioned, I don't see them in the original terms, that the chief administrative officer or fire chief may attend committee meetings in an advisory capacity. But when I look around what's been happening up until now, I think it's the other way around. I think the committee has been advising the fire chief on a number of projects and helping, get things done. And the two examples that I know of are the poverty reduction and the training session. And so I'm just curious, is the need here, and I'm thinking about work-life balance for the chief too, attending these meetings in addition to all the other work. But is it that the fire department needs an advisory committee to help them, help the fire chief in the department?
No, I don't think that was the case at all.
No.
No, the fire chief has come because we had two subcommittees. One was on the sort of the poverty reduction. That wasn't exactly the name of the committee, but it was. I'm going to say the other one was on things like the naloxone or first aid and things like that. There was two subcommittees working on that. But the fire chief obviously is very knowledgeable on that, but it wasn't to deal with at least wasn't any meetings that I was at.
No, those are the only two examples that I saw, so I just was curious if that was the role.
Okay, any other comments on? Did you have another comment? Or any other comments on the motion? Councillor Shukin.
Yeah, so just as I understand the motion, it's to review the draft terms of reference and provide feedback to staff, which is essentially what we're doing now.
Yeah, I guess the best thing to do would be to, make notes of tonight, things that are brought up tonight, and send them back to staff.
Okay, great. On that basis, I'm happy to support.
Okay, so I'll call the question. Councillor Gray.
I just had one other point to make, and that was the reference 6.1C in the roles and responsibilities. It says, the committee will obtain approval from the council for all initiatives undertaken by the committee. And that, no matter if one includes the questions of the school policy or the original mandate of the committee, I don't think that works. I think that all initiatives is a little bit strong. The committee is out there trying, as we just heard, the proposal was that the committee might be looking for grants or doing different things. They wouldn't be coming and asking us every time they want to do something. So I would suggest that particular point be removed. We've got some functioning advisory committees. How many have we got? Healthy Communities, MEASC, the Environment Committee, PTASC, NEI Committee. And when I look at it, I think about how those terms are referenced. I've heard at the table here about harmonizing. Each of those committees is quite different, one from the other. And it seemed to me that the big issue was to reduce the meetings throughout the year in order to help the staff workload. And I think that might be the key thing I'd like to see in the other terms of reference. So if those are being worked on, perhaps we could see them all together and then know what we're doing.
It was my understanding that if the committee has a recommendation, that it comes to a council committee, just as it says in 6.1C. Because I don't, the whole idea is what people are worried about is a committee going off and doing all these things without approval. So it seems to me that it is important for all the committees to bring their initiatives to the committee of the whole meetings for discussion and or approval.
Respectfully, I guess that's where I disagree. I look at the MEASC committee, the Environment Committee, and the terms of reference. We'll see them when we look at any revisions that might be proposed by staff, but that committee has brought forward something like 22 recommendations, either positions that we take in letters to be written or preparing reports, and I think 18 or 19 of them have been approved by council. And some of those come from work of the committee saying, hey, we should look into the environment, scan the environment, and bring forward those ideas to council. And I would hate to see that being lost for the Environment Committee. at any rate, and probably for PTASC and for Ed Committee, frankly. And I think it's good for healthy communities to be thinking out there and coming up with ideas and saying, hey, you should pay attention to this. That's part of what I would see as a role of an advisory committee.
Okay, any other discussion? Councillor Shuka.
Just, a very quick one on the actual terms of reference, just for feedback to staff. I wonder if if you look at section 2.0, the way it is organized, it does prioritize the community multi-use facility, whereas something like it might, the ordering of the actual scope elements might begin, say, with C, advocate and promote the value benefits of educational, cultural, health, and social activities. So something more sweeping than drop down to community, so the community multi-use facility. And that all that would do is just make it clear that the committee, Healthy Communities is about more than just the school. So, yeah, just general. But I'm ready to vote as well.
Sure. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. So in regards to my comment about duplicating services, I'd like an explanation of the accessibility as one point. So I have been appointed to that portfolio. I've had a lot of people in the community talking to me about it, engaged in the tour of the school with the CAO, the fire chief, Mike, who was a former employee of MCA, and Mr. McPherson. And so and I still attend the Access West Shore because that is what has been assigned to me. So with Healthy Communities be coming to me, or would they be going to you and then you to me? How is that going to work if this is going to be now a part of their mandate?
Well, I think it all changed from what I understand. It changed with the advent of the Capital West Committee. That council, there's not. I could be wrong, but there's no real reason to be connected with the whatever it is called now, Access West. It's a separate organization, just like a lot of other organizations out there now that council has committed and spent money to be part of the Capital West Committee. So that was my understanding that it was going to be a switch over now, and that if this is the way it works with the accessibility issue with Healthy Communities, it wouldn't just come to me. It would be the committee looking at it and using the advice from the Capital West Committee to look for grants and things like that. So I don't know, that maybe is a discussion that needs to happen with the CEO and.
Yeah. So my point is duplicating services. So we will have a citizen representative on Capital West who will report back to council, not to Health Communities. So then we have different streams of this happening. So earlier this year, I formulated speaking with MCA and the Schoolhouse Museum for a grant. And now it's been, I'm hoping, it's been sitting on the staff desk for a while. But anyways, and we have integrated some other parts of that. So that grant, which is $25,000, hopefully has been administered finally. And so this is something that I've been working on. So I don't want us to, one person doing one thing and then a group coming in and we're all going for the same grant. So there needs to be a component of communication. So that's my concern with one aspect of duplication.
Well, why didn't that grant, to get permission to apply for that grant, why didn't that come to council, which is how we normally work?
So that grant went to the CAO, and at a time when we were in between CAOs, and the only thing that it needed at the time was a signature from the sponsor, which was IAC, now Access West Shore. And now both Mr. Payette and Mr. Creed have, along with Deputy Corporate Officer, put it together. So it's in their hands.
I was just surprised because most other grants have to come to a committee meeting.
Correct.
First,
so it went to staff, and it's up to staff to take it to the next level.
Okay, well, I don't know, that's obviously a further discussion. It's not something that I can answer. Yeah. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, so we're going to vote on the motion, I guess, shortly, and I wanted to be clear that I'm not supporting the changes here, but it seems like the way to do that is to raise and have the discussion, and we're really asking staff to thread the needle here. Heard from me that I see it as being the gym and the grounds, and heard from the mayor that we should include the leases in the commercial side of the school. I guess I feel like when I'm just asking the CAO, I'm not really satisfied by the purpose or the reasons why, and maybe that could be fleshed out for us a bit better to understand what's the problem we're fixing by doing this. And I really appreciate what Councillor Shukin said earlier about the timing. And he's got a creative idea about what we might do instead. And my point isn't here to push these, the point of my motion is to push it ahead, but just have people pause and think about what we're up to here. And perhaps we could hear a little bit more from Councillor Shukin later.
Okay, with that, there's no more discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, with that, we'll move on to the staff report. Kind of covered it already, but on the
Councillor.
Sorry.
So there's the second component to that recommendation on page 5. So we've only passed the first part.
Does anyone want to, I thought no one want to move that. Does anyone want to move that second part?
Yeah, I will. And that the committee consider recommending council refer the draft terms of reference to the Healthy Community Advisory Select Committee for feedback.
Do you have a seconder for that motion?
Can I ask one point of information? Councillor Rapp, do you know when the next meeting of Healthy Communities is in 2025?
It'll probably be in January. It's only meeting every other month now.
Okay. I'm not going to support the resolution. I'll respect to Mayor Little. I don't feel it's, for me personally, I don't feel like it's time to advance this further. As much as I like the terms, but I feel like there's some deeper questions that need to be settled before we move to the next step. So.
Okay, does anyone else wish to second that motion? Okay, that motion fails. Now we'll move on to the staff report on the draft management plan. If there's anything new to add about that? So committee, do you have any more points about that to bring up or discussion on the draft management plan? Councillor Shukin.
Thank you, Councillor Epp, and I would support what has been said previously about the draft management plan. It is a good start, and there's some really great background information, especially going back in some of the history of the school. As I looked at the table with the key issues and then the objectives and the means of achieving them, there's some interesting elements here, and I think we can build on them. And look forward to seeing another draft as well. One specific comment, I think, section 2 is really, really long and probably could be broken up into a shorter section. It would be great. There's discussion about building area 1, building area 2, but it's not clear on what those are, so that would be neat to flesh out. The one thing I feel like we really should work on, and thank you to Mr. Pyatt for a start on this, is a clear vision statement of the school. And what's here is not really a vision statement, it's a description. It's a good description, but it's a description of the school. And the importance of a vision statement is more, I think it's aspirational, it's again visionary, and it's written as if it's actually, as I understand these processes, it's actually happening, or what you're striving toward. And one of the things, there's a reference to the social objectives. I forget where exactly this is, but what social objectives the school supports. And it'd be really interesting to highlight those. Again, community gathering place, place for generations to meet. Local merchants are able to like display wares and whatnot. So arts from local communities is shown. So spell those out a little bit more, potentially a vision statement. So that's just some initial comments. So.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Councillor Donaldson.
Yes, I just wanted to know, because there's no, I don't know if we're receiving this just as information, but in going through this, I noticed there were some omissions and some slight errors. Are we expected to maybe go through that and then send it to the CAO?
Yeah, I think that's it'd be a plan if everyone can make a few notes on what they see or what things that come up would be great. Good way to get it finalized. Councillor Gray.
Thank you. I appreciate the staff for putting this together. And as others have said, and we heard from the public, it's a good start. But for me, what's missing is the elephant in the room. Well, it's not the elephant in the room, it's talked about the financial situation we find ourselves in. Mayor Little spoke about it earlier. So I see the building as being sound, and a ton of work has gone into it, both from NACA and the tenants and everybody like that, and their public works crew keeping it all clean outside and everything. But I think while we have this management plan here, draft that we can work on and develop, I think we actually need a financial plan, or as Councillor Donaldson mentioned, a business plan, plus maintaining positive relations with our tenants, both commercial and volunteer-led. The sort of elements I would see in a financial plan would be revenue expectations and expenditures, opportunities to optimize revenue. We've got the new leases with the preschool, potentially with the Mitchelson Wellness Collective. There's another party interested in one of the commercial rooms there. The West Shore Parks and Rec is coming. But I'd like to get a handle on the financial questions. When IFTIC training left, we had a plan, I thought, to get new commercial tenants as quickly as possible. Instead, we didn't engage the leasing agent, and we forfeited about $75,000 in rent by not pursuing that. And now in our budget, the staff are proposing that we axe the leasing agent fees from our budget. So I'm just curious how that's going to work. If we don't lease it, then we're down this income. And then I'm reflecting in Council Resolution July 23rd. We directed the CEO to provide a report to Council on efforts and options to lease the commercial part of the school, and we haven't heard anything. So I'd like to hear that. The management plan doesn't cut the mustard for me. It does mention finances on page 15 of 17, and it's just a reference that we need to do a financial plan. So I'd like us to get cracking on that. And it came up in our correspondence tonight from one resident, and we heard about it from others about the need to pay attention to the finances.
Yeah, it is to noteworthy though that the school is actually quite busy, and with the Wellness Collective going in there, and the brewery and the preschool. There's 3 classrooms which are also being used consistently, regularly for training and paying the fee. There's jiu-jitsu in there. There's someone else now that wants to lease a room. So it's it's not that it's just sitting there empty. It's growing all the time. It's just getting busier all the time.
Quite, and I accept that. But I think when council asks for some action on something, it would be good to get the feedback, like what has been going on, what income have we received against the $75,000, I'll call that a loss. What is the training income that we get? We've asked a couple of times, but it hasn't been clear. And I think it would help me at the table, it would help us at the table, and it would help our staff, residents to know. So the training income, the short-term tenants, and I was going to ask, whereas they've been mostly empty, and I'm hearing not so much. So maybe we were getting that income, and that would be good to know. And did we advertise for long-term long-term tenants? And what are the options going forward? If we don't have a leasing agent, how will we do that? So I just wonder if this shouldn't be a staff priority in terms of the cost implications, and help us decide on the next steps forward.
I think we'll have Mr. Payette has comments about that.
Yeah, I need clear direction from council if we're leasing the rest of the school or not. Are we leasing it? We'll go ahead and we'll lease the school. If we're going to use it for programming and activities, then we're going to program it. But I can't be like doing two things at the same time. So I need a decision from council. Do you want me to lease out the last 3 classrooms? Yes or no? Okay, that's it. And I'll do it.
Okay. Well, for me, I like the way it's going now because there's a lot of different groups that can go in there and use it. If those 3 classrooms are permanently leased, then that really kicks out a lot of the community that would like to have, a jiu-jitsu class, which is in there now, but they're not in there, 24/7, 8 hours a day. And so same thing with the training. If it's, I think that it's important, and we talked about this way back when, it's important for this to be a community facility. And yes, we do need to make money from it, but I also, there is a balance there, and it is a community facility. So that's how I think that Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. So that's a really good point because we have the training there. It's not 24/7, but there are. Well, we've had training in those 3 classrooms now for several years. So we probably have a good idea of when training is going to happen in advance. One of the things we do down at West Shore Parks and Recreation is we diversify as much as we can with the asset we have, whether that's our fields, whether that's our fitness rooms. So we have about 25 different tenants, and they do not get to use, I'll use pickleball as an example because we've got some passionate people in the audience that are them. And so they don't get to use the whole pickleball court, but they do get to block certain parts of it. So therefore, it's open for other patrons to use. And this is a model that maybe we might use for these classrooms. Do we need all 3 classrooms for training? I don't really know. I have no idea how things are operating over there financially. But to keep it open so we can still use it for training and we can use it for other users, again, that takes a balance of, and we're not there yet maybe, I don't know, but that does take some thought to doing bookings. And if we can have blocks of that, then that's ideal. It becomes diversified. It's not just for community, it's not just for training, but we start using that space better. We're not there yet, but it is a good model to follow.
It is a good model, and that's also the Wellness Collective, said that if their business goes as they expected, they might want to use one of those other classrooms as well. And certainly, if we're going to have, it's very exciting to have programs coming in from the West Shore Parks and Rec, right? And so, but they're not always, some of them will be in the gym, but a lot of them I think will be in classrooms, first aid training, the smaller exercise things. I don't know exactly what's going to start in there, but they'll be using those classrooms. If those classrooms are rented commercially for a 5-day-a-week session, then that is going to eliminate a lot of those programs that would serve the community. Councillor Gray.
Well, it's great to have a discussion. I thought we had already decided that there's a commercial side and we were going to try and get that rented or leased. And if we're not, then I'm like Mr. Pyatt, I'd like to know that and have a decision about it. We made the motion back in July to get a handle on what is going on now so we could know about it and have a balanced discussion on it. I don't know enough about what's going on. That's why the motion came forward before.
Mayor Little.
Thank you. I would be in favor of turning over the 3 classrooms in the gym to a certain lease person or entity, because, as you say, Councillor Epp, it would take away from the community. And I think it's unrealistic to think that those 3 classrooms in the gym are going to solve all of the financial woes of the entire school site. I think it will contribute to it, but it won't make it cost neutral. ironically, the programs, the educational programs that are put on by the fire chief match the description of how it is zoned. It's zoned institutional, so it is more in keeping with how it is zoned as well. And that's a valuable part of our community, and what we give to other communities is training at the center. So if we lease that out to somebody else, we won't have those classrooms available for training and for other programming. So I wouldn't be in favor of leasing it out, giving direction to the CAO to lease it out completely to one entity.
Councillor Gray.
I guess I'd like to ask, is there anything wrong with council being informed as to what is going on and what money is being made at the moment on those rooms? Maybe we get a report from the CFO about this is the kind of money that's come in. I'm not all about money. We've got a great building there. There's a lot of community activity. I'm a big supporter of the school site there and everything that's going on. I really appreciate all of that. That we do have an issue of managing it. And to be clear, I fully expect the district will, I guess I'll say forever, be paying money to maintain the school and keep it going. It's not going to be one that's we get all our money back anytime soon. So I think the operational cost will be there, but I'd like it to be a lower figure than $167,000 a year. And I think it can be, and I think the community can have a great time and have a lot of access and do all kinds of things there, and still have us pay less than $167,000, $187,000 a year. So I'm just wanting to get to that point. So I look at the management plan, I think about a financial plan just to show us, well, how can we optimize our revenues here in keeping with the facility that's intended for building community.
Well, perhaps we could come back in the new year with more of a report about what is going on exactly there. Is that possible?
We can flush out the current financial, 5-year financial plan that we're working on as a municipality. There's a section in there for the recreation center. We can expand on it.
Okay, so we can look forward in January to a bit of expansion or more explanation about the finances and the use.
Councillor, thank you. I want to go back to the idea that I raised ahead with at the beginning of the meeting. Again, I think that there, as we're talking here now, there are some fundamental questions, and they're at the government's level in terms of investment in, technology for booking, investment in staff to run the facility, but also giving a go-ahead in terms of understanding what our financial expectations could be and questions around leasing or not, use or not. And I would put forward the idea of a subcommittee that would work with Mr. Payette and staff as well to frame up some of these questions for council to have another shot at. And with that, if I could, I'm going to make a motion. I would move that a subcommittee composed of Councillor Epp and Councillor Shukin, as advised by CAO, Mr. Payette, Mr. Creed, and other staff as necessary, to look at top-line governance questions, including financial matters, including revenue expectations, HR needs around the facilities, booking matters, and high-level operational matters. So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Mary Little. Discussion. Actually won't. I know the good intentions, but I won't actually be supporting this motion because I feel that that the operation of the school is a staff job.
And I agree with you. Again, when Mr. Payette has just thrown council the obvious question around lease intentions, and I think we haven't given him full clarity on that. So again, there are a number of questions that I think we have to frame up even to begin to answer them. And what we own is a recreational center that has multiple uses and multiple uses, but big aspirations. And as much as I agree that staff need to be running this, I think there's still some questions we have to answer to help them do that job. So.
Okay, any other discussion on this motion? Mayor Little?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Shukin. So do you see that and bringing that information back to council for discussion, whatever the results of that subcommittee are? And then we would move forward on the second recommendation with the healthy communities being involved.
Thank you. Just to answer your question, Mayor Little, I would see that as an outcome. Being able to be more comfortable with turning some of these big questions, being able to go to healthy communities with an understanding that the big questions have been answered or we're moving toward answering them. So, yeah.
Okay, so with that, I would support the motion because it would help us move this along. Otherwise, we're at a bit of a stalemate here, and staff won't know what to bring back to us and how to move this along. It's not perfect, and I think, but I think it is a step forward. And if the two of you could meet with the staff regarding some of these fundamental questions, bring it back to us, we can discuss them. Flesh out some of the details where some of the council members are having difficulty accepting or endorsing, and then bring forward this recommendation for recommending to council to refer the draft terms of reference to the Healthy Communities Committee. So with that, I would support the motion.
Any other discussion? All right, well, it seems like that might be.
It's a bit complicated, if I may. If Councillor, if you're not interested in that idea being named to it to do a bunch of work, I just believe you have that problem, if that's possible. I take the point that we got to go look at some of these things, but maybe I can test your interest again.
Well, obviously I'm interested in it, but I just not sure we can get any further. You know, maybe you're right, Matt. I'm not sure we can get any further than we already are, because it just seems to always end up in a stalemate. But you know, I would support it if it seems like everyone does.
Mm-hmm. Well, as I say, my interest is in a financial plan, which is a little bit different. But I suppose you might get together and say, hey, we need a financial plan. That to me is the highest order, and then things would drive from there. Again, not to be just a penny pincher or a bean counter, but just that seems to be, everything's running so well over there at the moment. And new things are coming, and we're doing really well. And so I'm just kind of, rather than looking at the one about how we manage the facility like this, I'm mostly interested in the financial aspects. So I look forward to the advice we might get in the budget process, but I also am interested in something a little different, which says, what do we think we can do here, given all of the different pieces.
Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay. Opposed? Okay. All right.
Can I raise one other issue? And that's the one of public engagement. So I don't know when that would fit in exactly, but I was trying to think today, have we actually had a kind of a event at the school where we've looked at the new gym and everything like that? I mean, maybe if we do some of this work and discuss it here at council, and people can then get clear about the issues that we have, ask questions of us, so get clear the questions, then we might have a time and event where we get input from the community based on whatever we come up with.
We might recall at our strategy session, we discussed having an event in February, and that would be part of it, as well as the active transportation plan.
Now, well, if we timed it and got stuff back to this table so people could hear what the ideas were, ask questions about them, if there's some written documents, then we could build to something where we actually have an evening to talk about or hear from people about what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I just want to mention there was one other council resolution on July 31st, directed the CEO to bring forward a report about the engagement with the Village Square Society on the development of the Village Square. And so that's another piece that would be good to have if we do get together, looking for community input around the school itself. I think the school is a big enough topic, frankly, for us to take on in a public event.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on the draft management plan? With that, I do not have a councillor's update, so I'll just call for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mary Little, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion, James Leon. Yeah, was going to do that too. Thank you. Thanks for reminding me. All in favor, first of all. And wish everyone a wonderful holiday season and all the best in health and happiness and family and peace and love and all that stuff. So we'll see you in the new year. Remember this.